Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome back for another episode. This is Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and you are listening to the Networking RX podcast. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for subscribing. Today is a guest day. Today's going to be a fun day. I have on me with me Gina Trimarco. She is a sales and leadership strategist. You're probably saying, well, who isn't, right? She's unique in that she's unique in a lot of ways, but she helps her teams, she helps her clients be more human through improv-based sales and leadership training with an emphasis on emotional intelligence. She calls this improvised intelligence. In addition to being the chief results officer of Pivot 10 Results, she's also the founder of Carolina Improv Company, which all ties into it. It's an improv comedy theater and school in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and she's been doing this since 2008 when she moved there from the Windy City. Gina, welcome to the program.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I guess give us the story. How'd you end up in South Carolina from Chicago? I know the story. I want to see if you can keep it straight with our guests.
You mean the one where I'm in the witness protection program? That story?
Yeah, that one, or the different one.
I'll tell you the story I tell most people. I was recruited to South Carolina in 2007 to take over an IMAX theater because I'd been running one in Chicago at Navy Pier. I had worked in the IMAX world for several years. In operations. They recruited me because of my marketing sales background, and then I made that theater pretty profitable, and then got recruited by another IMAX theater to come to South Carolina. And I thought Myrtle Beach was in Florida, and I got here and it was South Carolina, and then the recession.
Well, that's close enough.
Exactly. The recession hit a year later as soon as I got here, so that was kind of stressful. But that's what brought me to South Carolina, and I stayed.
Now, where did the improv thing come from?
So the improv thing, improv has been in my blood since, I want to say 1989, 1990, when I was an accounting major in college and wanted to shoot myself in the eyeballs because math is not for me. And I was an accounting major to appease my dad, but I've always been more on the artistic side. So I started taking improv classes at Second City as a way to just give me some creative balance if I was going to live this life of an accountant. And then through improv realized, I got to get out of accounting. So improv actually opened the door for me to see other possibilities. Probably the coolest thing about taking those classes that the other students taking the classes were, I don't want to say much older than me, but when you're 19, 20, everybody seems older than you. I want to say they were, 30s and 40s. So I was exposed to a different group of people and ultimately changed my major to journalism. And that took me down a path of television production and radio production. And so it's always been in my blood, but I knew that it wasn't going to, at that stage in my life, it wasn't going to make me rich and famous. I kind of hoped it would. I was hoping Lorne Michaels was going to come see me and put me on Saturday Night Live, and that never happened. So
Bastard.
What was he thinking?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I got a second chance at it at like age 39 or 40. I can't remember exactly when I started my business. I actually was looking in Myrtle Beach for a place to take improv classes as a refresher because you could take them over and over again just to exercise your brain. And there was no such thing in Myrtle Beach, and that was depressing. And someone said, why don't you start your own group and start teaching people? I'm like, that's the last thing I want to do.
Right.
And that's what happened. That's how it got started. It got started as kind of a fluke. And 1 week before my first class that I was going to be teaching, in a theater run by another Chicago girl. I got fired from my job. This was 2008. And I'm like, well, I've got business cards and a website.
Yeah.
Let's go. And never looked back.
Well, we've obviously talked before, but I find it interesting, how you've kind of tied improv with sales and leadership,
Mm-hmm.
because when you think about it, nothing's scripted. Nothing's scripted out there in the world.
Nothing.
We like to think it is, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not. Every day's different.
Mm-hmm.
People are different. People are different day to day. When did you have the epiphany, or how did you have, I guess, when and how did it come about that you had this epiphany that you could really tie these two things together?
Well, probably the first one, because there were a couple of them. The first one was when I was running the IMAX Theater in Myrtle Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a new challenging environment to be in a different region of the country that was so different from Chicago, and finding talent was really hard. There's no public transportation here. It's just a different socioeconomic world. We are a tourist town, a median population of 30,000, 17 million visitors a year.
Wow.
And so just finding talent to work is a challenge. And I was really burnt out, for one, but I was struggling to get my frontline, minimum wage employees to be really good at customer service. So I knew the value of improv, and for business. And I thought, well, I'm going to hire an outside company that does that, what I do now, and have them come in and do customer service training with my team. And I sat back and I observed it. And that was the first epiphany, when I was like, this is what I want to do right here. Because I watched the transformation happen for the first time in a business setting. I saw that in front of me. Before that, I'd only experienced it from an entertainment standpoint. So as I watched my employees transform, like within an hour, I could see which employees were in the wrong jobs immediately. I'm like, that employee should not even be front facing anybody. I'm like, you could really start to tell, who was comfortable, who wasn't comfortable, who was never going to be comfortable, who just needed a little pushing. And that was my first aha. So really in that moment, I'm like, all right, that's what I want to do next, because I had become really good at putting teams together. And that was something that, if you ask me in a job interview, what am I really good at? That is one of them. And
right.
So I saw that as an opportunity to take my skills of building a team and being a leader, to take improv and infuse it in my next life, is where my head was at that moment. From a sales perspective, because I never really envisioned it for sales, because I never thought of myself as a salesperson. And then I figured out I was. From a sales perspective, a couple years after we opened the theater and we've been running classes, we had several timeshare salespeople come through classes, and they started telling me, like, oh my gosh, my sale, I'm getting so much better at closing since improv. And I'm like, really? And it started to make a lot of sense to me, what they were saying and how it was helping them be comfortable having conversations and building relationships and being in the moment and knowing when not to talk. Like, so they were taking all those skills in the 6-week class that they were coming to and using it. And then they started telling other salespeople. And then those salespeople were signing up for, I'm like, I'm onto something here. This is improv for sales. And it was a struggle selling improv for leadership, which is another reason why we rebranded our training division to Pivot 10 Results, because improv was a hard sell. People want results. They don't care about what the tool is. They just want results. So it was a challenge getting companies to wrap their head around hiring us for improv for leadership. Number one, improv scared them. Number two, don't tell us that there's something wrong with our leadership. This is a harder sell.
Yeah.
But tell them that you're going to help them make more money and they start listening. So we really did pivot in a lot of ways. We pivoted to the approach was improv for sales as a way in the door with an organization. And then we could
Right.
see, oh, okay, so here's some of your other issues.
Right.
Once we built know, like, and trust with them, once we got in the door, once we showed them that we could deliver results through that training, then we could back end it with leadership.
I mean, I would think that improv really, I don't know if I'm getting my words right, helps with the plasticity of their brain. I mean, it's just, I mean, I've had sales training. I've been through sales training. I got a license to sell life insurance. Oh God. There's a story from my past. But it was always very scripted, right? Do this, do this, do this, and shut up. Almost like you were making a cake. You know, you mix this, you put it in the oven, you just said it will work. I found it never worked. It never worked the way it was supposed to.
Right. And I think that's one of the biggest challenge when it comes to selling, and why some people don't make it in sales, because they've been put through these programs that are, and there's a lot of great sales training out there, a lot of great sales training. And our company now is aligning with Jeb Blunt's Sales Gravy University. You need to know the basics. You need to learn the playbook, but then you need to know how to deprogram it a little bit and get off the playbook and have more flexibility. You know the script. Now you know how to play with the script and change the script and pivot with the script. And that's where people get stuck. They get stuck on, well, I'm going to follow this script and this process, and that should do it. And the thing is, clients and customers do not want to be processed by a tool, especially if you're the tool.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, nothing makes me madder than having somebody get on a call with you or the email, like to talk, would Tuesday or Thursday be best? Well, we've all been through that training, right? We know what you're doing. The magic doesn't work if you know what the magic trick is. It's not, it takes all the allure out of it. Oh, I know where that rabbit comes from. Big deal, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, I know what you're doing. And the answer is, it's the worst on LinkedIn. And every time I get hit up like that on LinkedIn, and I can 9 times out of 10 tell you who's going to do it. The second I accept someone's request to connect with me, I'm like, I'm going to see how long it takes them to hit me up.
Yeah.
And then I'm ready. I'm ready with, like, read the following article, because I've written some blogs about it. On, please court me before you try to take me to bed.
Go ahead.
Yep. You've written a similar one. That's what
Yeah.
And I loved yours, because it was like, I'm right there with you. It's like, woo me a little bit. Pretend.
You missed so much opportunity. I just sent a woman an email yesterday because she was asking me, would I be interested in getting a virtual assistant through her? And I'm not. No. And then she responded with, thank you so much for being polite to me, which tells me a whole lot of what her world is like, right? And I just responded. I said, when you come at me with a pitch, it's going to be a yes or it's going to be a no. And that's the end of it. But if you came at me from a relationship standpoint, I would like to learn about your business. I would like to learn about who you know. I would love the opportunity to share about myself. The odds are I'm willing to take that time. And it still might be a no with respect to me, but you have enough of a relationship that it can go elsewhere. So, but.
Exactly. And I'm always talking about that. Like, you should be building the relationship, if not for business directly with that person, but for the referrals.
Right.
And who they know, and who are they willing to recommend you to?
Right. So what are some exercises people can do, improv type things? I mean, obviously hire you. We'll get at that. But are there suggestions you have for people?
Yeah, there's the foundation, and I do this a lot. I don't own this. I didn't trademark this. This is the philosophy and foundation of improv in general, and it's the concept of yes and. I'm not sure if you've heard of that. It's not completely foreign, but Yes and is a really big mindset piece that we follow as improvisers. So, yes and is basically the opposite of yes but or no but.
Right.
So we have a tendency, we're conditioned to yes but people, which is shutting them down, pretending that we're in agreement with them, and then we give them the big but. And yes and is really about acceptance versus agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about being open to how people think and feel, being open to what their objections are, being open to what their belief system is, being open to their reality. Their perception is their reality, and being open to that and accepting that doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It
So
means
it's me coming at you and saying, Gina, you certainly have a heck of a background, but your service is really expensive. And
yeah, exactly. And we actually take that and do a literal exercise with it. So
right.
if you were to come and say, but you're really expensive, I can come back and say, literally, in the literal sense of the exercise, yes, I am really expensive, and we deliver results. And this
Right.
is how we do it. So it's really not, it's going to be expensive probably upfront for you. The results that are going to happen as a result of working with us are going to pay those expenses and then some.
Gotcha.
So it's me validating, you're right. And sometimes I come right out and tell people, I'm like, I don't know if you can afford us. We're expensive, which is a whole different
right.
whole different tactic. Like, I want to head off the objection. Like, you might not be for us. How about that?
Right.
So it's validating what someone has to say. So we do have a literal exercise, and this is the foundation of all the training going forward. Every exercise that we do after that literal yes and exercise is building on it in some way to help get you better in a certain area, whether it's prospecting or overcoming objections or just general innovation or collaboration. So there are a number of exercises that really, you were talking about I'm going to see if I can say it, the plasticity.
Yes, of the brain.
Plasticity of the brain. So think about it. Your brain is a muscle. So right. If you don't exercise muscles, they're things that they're not going to be able to do anymore. So improv skills are innate. We're born with them. We're born to be able to be in that fight or flight mode, right? So being able to move really quickly in a situation. We are born to observe people and read body language. We are born to listen. Like, all of those skills that we use in improv, we were born with. So anytime someone says to me, oh, I can never get on stage like you and do that, and I say, yes, you can. If you practice it, if you exercise your brain, you're going to get better. So if you wanted to get started today with exercising your brain, we would do a literal yes and exercise to just reprogram you. So you and I are going to try it now because you brought it up.
Okay.
You asked to do an exercise. So we yes and those ideas.
And we're out of time. Go ahead.
I tell, it's like my own team, because we live a culture of yes and anytime they bring an idea to me and they can see my eyes glaze over, they literally will jump in and go, yes and me, Gina, yes and me. So we're going to do this exercise together so you can get a feel for it. And it's kind of wonky because it's so literal. So you are going to actually, I'm going to just give you I'm going to say a simple short phrase to you, and your job is to literally say yes. Repeat what you heard me say. Literally say and then add something to it.
Okay.
So, yeah. Did I say you're going to say it or I'm going to say it? I've already lost track.
No, you're going to say it, and then I'm going to
say,
follow
that's
on.
right. I'm going to
Yeah.
say it, and you're going to say the yes. Repeat me. Say and. I was having a brain fart for a second there, and then
Okay.
add on to it, and then I'm going to say yes. Repeat the part that you added.
Okay.
And so on, and it'll feel a little weird. So here are a couple things I want you to think about. You cannot be in your head thinking about the next thing. You have to say the first thing that comes to your mind. And there's no questions in this.
Okay.
So without those rules in mind, are you ready?
I'll do my best.
Okay. It's hot in South Carolina.
It's hot in South Carolina.
So I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you right there. So you're going to literally say yes.
Okay.
So it's hot. It's hot in South Carolina.
Yes, it's hot in South Carolina, but the beaches.
Up.
What's
that?
Did you say
but? Did you say but?
Oh, no. Okay, you're right. You're right. Yes, it's hot in South Carolina, and that makes it great to go to the beach and get ice cream. I think they have wonderful foods.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I already forgot everything you said. See what happened there?
Yeah.
So okay, good. This is such a great example.
Right.
You went on so long that I couldn't even process it to validate you.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense.
I'm like, oh gosh, I've already forgot what he said.
That's okay. I've got kids. I'm used to this. No, but I get the point. I get what you're doing, and I can see, how that could help people become better at sales. Certainly leadership, right? Because I get people coming at me all the time, and I don't know what it is, right? And the yes and yes, you're yes, you're upset, blah 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 blah, and life's going to be like that. We just need.
Right. So let's unpack it a little bit, and then I want to try it again with you. So when we do this exercise to kind of this is really about rewiring the brain. So for anyone who is analytical or on the DISC profile, let's say you're a C on the DISC profile, and you're like, oh my gosh, we would never talk this way. I get it. This is really an exercise to just get your brain to a different place. Your response back to me was really, really long, right? And so I couldn't validate you because I couldn't remember.
Mm-hmm.
And think about this in the sales process. When we talk too much, the mind becomes confused.
Right.
And the mind is trying to process it. And so then the mind just kind of shuts down. And so it makes it harder to sell to that confused brain. So talking in those shorter clips to help them process is going to create a better trust with somebody.
Gotcha.
Because you're setting them up as a winner. One of our biggest tenets in improv is making other people look good. So when you stay in the mindset of making other people look good, everything you want to do, from the sales conversation to the delivery of whatever your service or product is about making that buyer look good in every step. So setting me up with something that I can easily follow, remember, and repeat makes me feel like, oh, I got it right. I got it. What he said, I got it right. So let's try this again, just for the fun of it, because I know you really don't want to. So I'm going to make you do it again.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with another phrase, and this time it's, you really like me.
I really like you. Yes.
Don't forget to first say yes.
Okay. Say yes.
You're going to say yes. You're going to say yes, and then you're going to repeat what I said. So
okay.
You really like me.
Yes, I really like you. And I also think you're very intelligent.
Yes, you also think I'm very intelligent. And I think you're very witty.
Yes, you think I'm witty. And I'm a pretty good faker too.
Yes, you are a pretty good faker too. And that's what I've heard about you.
Yes, the word does get out there about me.
No. Repeat what I said.
Oh, yeah. I forgot what you said.
I said,
I'm thinking ahead. That's the problem. Right.
Exactly. I said, that's
Yeah.
what I heard about you. And you skipped over that.
Yep. Yes, that's what you've heard about me. And that's generally pretty accurate.
Yes, that is generally pretty accurate. And we're going to stop right here.
Okay, good. I'll stop sweating.
Do you see how these different things come up that we may not even recognize about ourselves?
No, I think this is very useful. I was listening to a podcast. Tim Scher out of Indianapolis. He's a psychologist, and he has a listening exercise. Last letter, last word. You listen for the last letter of the last word the person says, and that's what you got to start with.
Yeah.
Which is incredible for making people just dial in.
Yeah, and that's another great improv exercise.
Yeah. And, it's just things we need to do. I guess moving along here, what could the audience do to help you? What are you looking for? How can we help you?
I'm always looking for organizations that are looking to improve their sales skills of their teams and are looking for a different way to do it to make them more human, especially right now in the times that we're in. You have to be agile and be able to move, and people are looking for human connection now more than ever. So anyone who is looking for that kind of help, that would help me.
Okay.
Greatly.
What would be the best way to get a hold of you?
You can go to GinaTrimarco.com, which takes you to all the things. Takes you to Pivot 10 Results, Carolina Improv, my podcast, Women Your Mother Warned You About, GinaTrimarco.com or Pivot10Results.com.
Okay, we'll put GinaTrimarco.com in the show notes.
Awesome.
You are awesome, and I really appreciate you being on the program.
Yes, you really appreciate me being on the program. And I can't wait to see you in one of my upcoming virtual improv classes, maybe spontaneous selling.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.